Happy Friday. Brenden Foland, Government Relations Director and your lobbyist here at the AEA. Just wanted to give you a quick legislative update this week, talk about kind of what happened this week in committees and what we saw, as well as talk about some of the bills that we're seeing come through next week in committees. We also, real quick, I want to let you know that we created almost a cheat sheet, if you will, to help you track all the bills going through at the legislature. We've included the link in the chat so you can download that. We will have a more final form fillable version for you available next week. So keep an eye out for that. We'll make sure it's easily accessible for you all. Going on to this past week's committee bills, we'll start off with some good news. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1010, this is the bill that required all school board elections to be partisan. That bill actually failed in committee. There was a lot of opposition to the idea of making school board elections partisan. Senate Bill 1159, however, this bill is the one that waters down teaching certifications so that almost anybody can be put in front of a classroom while they learn to teach, and then they're allowed to use that experience to get certified as a teacher. This bill passed out of the Senate Education Committee on a party line vote. The AEA is strongly opposed to this bill, and we will be opposing it as it moves through the process. On the House side, House Bill 2161, this bill will require educators and school staff to out all transgender students to their parents. It also will force them to out any LGBT students to their parents. And in fact, anything any school employee hears a student say, even in passing, is required to be disclosed to that student's parents, or the school district can get sued. This bill also passed out of education in the House on a party line vote. The AEA is opposed to this one. House Bill 2439 will require school boards to approve every single book purchase for school libraries. This includes individual classroom libraries that teachers have for their students. Additionally, before buying any new books, those books have to be listed for public review for at least 60 days before being bought and included in a library. That bill also passed out of House Education on a party line vote. House Bill 2495 was another contentious bill we saw come through House Education. This bill, just for a little background, in 2019, the legislature decided to repeal what was at the time called the No Promo Homo statutes that prohibited discussion about LGBT issues, individuals, history. This bill effectively reinstates that law and takes it further. It will prohibit the teaching of anything that includes homosexuality, and will also require a signed permission slip simply to teach literary classics such as Romeo and Juliet and The Great Gatsby. This was another party line vote out of House Education. Discussion and debate on this one was rather heated and got very nasty. If Joe wants to say a few comments on this one, I'll give him the floor.
Sure, Brenden, thank you. This is, I think, the kind of bill that we're going to continually see this year at the legislature, where the legislature is trying to divide educators from their students and divide us from their parents. We know that when students come to us with confidential stories, that they are trusting us and they are confiding in us. And some of those stories are very innocent and about forgetting someone's birthday, or forgetting to feed the dog that morning or something. And others are much more serious. And educators should not be put in a place where they cannot have any confidential conversations with our students. And I'm hoping that we can really talk some common sense into the legislature and into the public, for them to understand that this has the potential to fundamentally change the relationship between parents, teachers, and students. It is a horrible idea, and it is, again, as I said, pretty indicative of the really mean-spirited and discriminatory bills that we're going to see from this patch of legislators in the majority party. And I taught with Republican members my entire life, and teachers and education support professionals that had been Republicans since they could vote. They never could understand why, once you get elected to the legislature, if you're a Republican, you suddenly stop paying attention to the needs of the students in the community and in the community schools, often the very same public schools that those legislators went to. So again, this is a horrible bill, absolutely malicious in its intent, and they know what they're doing. And so we need to make sure that we're contacting our legislators on this bill and other ones, indicating that they don't understand the harm that they're causing by taking away, one or two or three of those confidential people, the adults that educators can come to, and then we can help them get the resources that they're really looking for. So again, this is a horrible idea, but a malicious one as well. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Joe. And one quick reminder, House Bill 2112, this is the teacher gag bill. It passed through House Education in the first week of session for committees. This bill is now passed through the Rules Committee. So now it's awaiting the final debate and a final vote by the House of Representatives. So far, we're not sure where it stands, but we are strongly opposed to this bill as well. Moving on to next week, there's going to be a few controversial bills in the Senate, as well as the House. We'll start with the Senate. There's Senate Bill 1036. This bill is going to fine any school $1,000 for each classroom that doesn't display the American flag, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. On some good news, though, there is Senate Bill 1189, sponsored by Senator Bowie. This bill is going to provide additional funding for public schools to hire additional school counselors to provide mental health supports to their students. The AEA is supportive of this bill, and we're hoping we can see more support for our students' mental health. Senate Bill 1211 is going to require all learning materials to be posted online before the start of the school year. This bill also requires all materials used for any instructional purposes or professional development on issues such as race, gender, non-discrimination, or social emotional learning to be posted online at least 3 days before being used. And I'll let Joe talk on this one for a bit as well.
Yeah, we've seen this bill before, and we're seeing it all around the country. And the ruse is they're calling it's transparency. And the only people that would believe that that's the only form of transparency that public teachers are asked to provide is someone that's never had a conversation with a parent teacher, or excuse me, with a teacher. They've never been to parent teacher night or open house. Everyone knows that they have access to our curriculum. They can have a meeting, we can sit down and have a really in-depth conversation about not only how well the student is doing in the class, but what the goals are of the class. We send syllabuses out. The public school has always been a place of engagement. But again, this is another example of where the majority party, for whatever reason, is trying to drive a wedge in the community between our public schools, our teachers, our education support professionals on one side, and parents and students on the other. These are mean-spirited. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to try to act like, oh no, this is about transparency. We think we should have all the lessons up. Well, they almost all are outlined and turned into where people can see what it is that's going on. And if there's a question you have, call me as your child's classroom teacher, and let's have a great conversation about what we're going to be working on, plus how well your student is doing and what ideas that I might have, or listen to the student for what ideas they might have to really get more out of the class. Again, an incredibly mean-spirited bill. This one, I don't think they recognize will be a reason that educators, and particularly classroom teachers, will cite for leaving Arizona classrooms, because this is just untenable. And I'll finish with this. I was in the classroom when the attacks of September 11th happened, and I had no lesson plans for the next week that would address what my students were asking me. I had to go to the newspapers. I had to look at what people were talking about, and that became our lessons for part of the day. And part of what we have to do is help our students understand how they can make sense of the world. Where are the resources they can go to understand what is going on with these big events that they see. And if we had another incident of any magnitude, this would prevent us from being able to teach much about that, because that's still a lesson you're teaching in your classroom, even around current events. There's critical thinking, there's summarization, there's all sorts of elements of what it is that we're trying to convey to our students that happen when we have those conversations. And I promise you, Even if someone says, well, that's not a lesson that won't be impacted by this bill, there will be impacts on everything that we do in our classroom if this goes up, because people will photocopy things. They'll photocopy things from, or not photocopy, but they'll take pictures of things from the internet or from other schools, and they'll try to pass it off as us. Again, another example of the legislature trying to drive a wedge between the community and the school that serves it. And we need to call them out for this and make sure that the public understands that they can come in, and we would love to have conversations with our parents. We would love to have them come into school and see what it is that we're doing. I never missed an opportunity to brag about my students or the work that they were able to accomplish in my classroom. That's transparency, and it's a two-way street. It requires us meeting in the middle, as we always have. So 1211 is a horrible bill, and we're going to need to work really, really hard to make sure that it is defeated.
And moving on to another one, Senate Bill 1326 is a Senator bill brought by Senator Shope. This is another repeat bill that we saw a version of last year. So this bill will let students get credit for doing activities outside of the classroom, things like tutoring, working, taking music lessons. And this bill, the way it is written and the impact will disproportionately hurt our arts programs in schools and could jeopardize the ability for schools to even have certain arts classes. And I'll let Joe talk on this one a bit as well.
Sure. Another really horrible idea that sounds innocent at first, but what will happen is students from more affluent areas will have more opportunities to cite, I don't know, Boy Scout troops, Boys and Girls Club volleyball games, who knows what. This makes it to where anything can be cited and called credit, whereas what we have to do is master the standards and make sure that we have everything transparent and put out. So on one side, that's how we're being treated, and public schools are being treated. And on the other side, well, there's just this grab bag of whatever you want to go do. If you go shopping at the mall, well, we'll call that economics maybe. This is a horrible idea again, and it's really a slap in the face of every educator out there that's working hard on enriched and engaging curriculum that you know your students need to work through to where they can master all of this that we're trying to teach them. And this again is overreaching. There's not many boundaries on what you could call a coursework and potentially get some credit for. So another bad idea, a really, really bad idea. And really, this shows the value of the work that they think that you're doing every day in school. It's the equivalent of somebody, taking a horseback riding class or going shopping and using coupons and calling that, life skill math or something. This is just awful. Again, shows the disconnect between the legislators and what is really going on in our classrooms across the state.
And if the Senate didn't have enough fun for us, we're going to move on to the House now. House Bill 2025, this is the bill that requires all schools to establish any policies for classroom visits, tours, observations of all classes and classrooms in the school, and requires schools to post those policies online. This bill actually failed to pass committee 2 weeks ago, the first week of committees. Yet the bill sponsor is bringing it back to committee. Representative Udall is the bill sponsor. She's bringing it back to committee for another vote next week. House Bill 2277 is from Representative Fillmore, and this bill is going to circumvent the will of school district voters by allowing school districts to just change school district boundaries without any voter approval, as long as no more than 10% of the school's students are forced to transfer to that new school district. House Bill 2278 is also a Fillmore bill that eliminates the requirement that students take 4 years of math for high school graduation. Instead, the bill now also gets rid of Algebra 2 as a required class for graduation and makes high school math requirements much less rigorous. House Bill 2279 is yet another bill from Representative Fillmore. This one allows county school superintendents to force small school districts to unify with any adjacent school district. Any school district in rural Arizona with less than 150 students can just be forced to be absorbed into another school district, regardless of what that school district's parents and students and educators want. And then House Bill 2414 is actually going through, all of those bills are going through House Education. House Bill 2414 is going through House Judiciary. This is a Representative Parker bill, and it's going to allow anybody that's 18 or older to keep a loaded gun in their car on school grounds. That doesn't limit it to non-students, so any 18-year-old student can also keep a loaded gun in their car during school hours. Those are all bills that, as you can imagine, we have massive issues with. That's it, luckily, for next week's committees, for now at least. Anything else, we'll make sure we post on our action page for you. And then one reminder real quick, it's just the legislature this week, another week has passed, and it's another week that the legislature has failed, the legislative majority and the Republicans have failed to address the expenditure limit issue. School districts face a $1.1 billion cut on April 1st if the legislature refuses to act on March 1st. We're about a month away from devastating cuts to our public schools. And on that topic, I'm actually going to hand it back to Joe.
Thank you for everyone that was able to join us last night on the Zoom webcast that we did, where we talked about the aggregate expenditure limit and what we are going to have to do about it. So if you were on that call, you know the assignment or the ask was to go out and find other members, other colleagues, other friends, anyone that you believe is a public school supporter, and make sure that they're ready to attend a very similar webcast we're going to do next week. We have a toolkit for you all to be able to utilize to spread awareness around the aggregate expenditure limit. This is as serious a crisis that I've ever seen Arizona public schools face. I've not lived here forever. I moved here in 1996, and I cannot think of a time when we were going to cut $1 billion+ of our public school budget in the same budget year. And not only that, but in the third quarter, moving into the fourth quarter of the school year. This will be devastating, absolutely devastating. I can't even imagine what schools will look like after March 1st. They'll have the funds to move forward a little bit, but it would be the equivalent of saying, we can keep all our classrooms open, but at this time of the year, with as much money as we've already paid you, this 15% cut means everybody needs to take an across the board 28% pay cut or 37% pay cut. It's untenable. So if you weren't able to join us on the webcast last night, we're doing another one next week. Someone will put into the chat, please, the link for you all to go to that and attend next week. We'll be putting information up. Again, we do have a toolkit at arizonaea.org/AEL in all caps. And you can find some information there to where you can help engage your colleagues and your friends. You would think a non-controversial, simple vote that said, yes, we're going to let schools spend the money that we sent them already, because that's what this is about. The money is already coming to the school districts. It's been budgeted. That budget was passed last year. But since we've hit this artificial limit on the total amount our district schools can spend, the legislature has to okay us spending all of the dollars in the budget they've already approved. And what I truly believe they're going to do, and I'm not the only one, is they're going to want to make a deal with us. They're going to want to expand vouchers, or they're going to want to put all of the new dollars into results-based funding that help only certain students in certain schools. We need a clean repeal of the aggregate expenditure limit. We need to make sure it does not impact our schools this year, and we need to send a question to the ballot. We need a referral from the legislature that repeals the aggregate expenditure limit for K-12 schools forever. This is a cap on our students. This says the maximum amount we can spend, that we can invest in our schools, that we can spend in a year, is based on 1980 school funding adjusted for growth and inflation. So not how well we want to do today, but how much we were spending in 1980, before computers, certainly before the one-to-one classroom, before the security measures we put in, before all of the other advances that we've done in the last 40 years. This is a barrier that prevents our students from having the opportunities they deserve. Everyone in the legislature knows it, Democrat and Republican. And we have got to convince enough of them to make sure that that does not impact our budgets this year. And that's a simple, non-controversial vote. And we need a vote, we need a referral to go to the voters in the 2022 election so we can repeal this thing forever. It will absolutely keep us buried in about 53rd through, or excuse me, 43rd through 50 on school funding. We will never be able to get out of the basement as long as we have the aggregate expenditure limit artificially keeping our students down. So please come into the chat we're going to have, or excuse me, the webcast we're going to have next Thursday night. So you can learn more about it, learn what you can do. We're going to be having a lot of conversations with our members and hoping that our members have conversations with their colleagues to make sure that everyone is aware of the absolutely catastrophic future that schools might have this school year if the legislature doesn't act. Brenden?
Thanks, Joe. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who stuck with us this Friday night. I know you've had a long week, and I know that there's a lot of bad bills coming through, but just know that we're going to be down there fighting, trying to stop every bad bill we can and make sure that your voices are heard down at the Capitol. So thanks again for spending the night with us, and hope you all have a good weekend.
Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.